Good morning, everybody. It's Merritt with Master of One Coaching here, and I am joined by my special guest, my friend and colleague, Sara Emhof. Good morning, Sara. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Nice to be here, Merritt.
Excellent, excellent. I'm so glad to have you. So, Sara, when we have guests on our live, we typically start off with asking you about your story. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here.
Yeah, easy question, right? The older I get, the harder this question is, right? Because the story is longer. But I guess the story is I really have grown up swimming in the youth leadership development and civic engagement world. I was lucky enough as a teenager to get thrown into a diverse group of students from all over the Buffalo area, which we have connections to. And it just set the tone for me at a young age of bursting my bubbles, and realizing what I don't know and connecting with people who are very unlike me and really loving it. And also feeling like the youth voice was important. Like it was important to understand my community and the different opinions in the community and the different perspectives in the community. So that started very early and continued a life in civic engagement, youth leadership development, working with students and teachers from all over the country and helping to equip them with skills for democracy. And loved every minute. I'm very lucky to have, had a career of passion and purpose. And despite that, I also have lived a life of some anxiety too, and that comes from my perfectionist tendencies. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. So yeah, even despite that, I've really looked at my own relationship with myself and with my work and with others, and really, I guess today too, found how much play and understanding the mind and creativity is also a big part of our health. Like our work is great and it has purpose, and we need to connect in with ourselves as well. So that's a really short snippet, but that's kind of the theme of my life is the the social and civic engagement and leadership development, and really just connecting with diverse perspectives. I love that. So.
Amazing. And you have such a rich and diverse, yes, in so many different ways in terms of perspectives and culture and research that you've done. And I love, especially that we talk about sort of the neuroscience of fun and getting to understand the brain. I totally geek out about that. I just want to remind everybody too that if you have a question or a comment, or you just want to say good morning, I would love to see one or two comments there up in the feed to see how you all are doing out there, because I do see we have some people live here today, which is wonderful. So say hello and let us know if you have any questions for Sara as she talks a little bit more about what she does and what she's passionate about. So actually, let's talk a little bit about your passion specifically. And you mentioned the youth voice and how that's important. How has that driven you in your work from the point of recognizing that as a young person and then going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've always had a passion for youth in general. I think, who gets to work with the future every day? There's something amazing about that. And I just have a passion for being a continuous learner, a student always. And with that just comes from always learning about people, always being curious. So I think really my passion has become how can I stretch myself? How can I be curious about the world and what opportunities come up when I do that, or looking at my own way of understanding things and then hearing from someone else that they look at things really differently. So that's a passion, and really just play is a passion. And that actually grew out of my love of dance. I just have always found I was an athlete. I still consider myself an athlete. I love to be moving my body, and it gets me out of my head. And I got into some freestyle dance and became a facilitator of this journey dance a few years ago, and realized that this was my vessel. I don't do well with meditation. It's too hard for me to sit, but moving my body to music and connecting with other people while I was doing it would just completely changed my brain. It got me connected to myself. And there's a lot of play in that. And I was play deprived. So my passion has been, how do we bring play into the workforce and into our daily life so that we are more agile, we are more resilient and creative, and we're just enjoying life more.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it's almost like, it seems like, well, the world's so serious, it feels bad, and you're like, I'm gonna go play. It's part of the process.
Yeah, well, is it a really important part for our sanity, right? And our wellness. So Tina is saying good morning. Hi, Tina. And Tom Duggan. Hello, Tom. Nice to see you there too. Sara, by the way, is joining us from Rhode Island today, which is kind of cool. And she and I met in Western New York in Buffalo a few moons ago. And we have since both dispersed to other parts of the world or country. But so this is one of the magic of pieces of Zoom, right, to allow us to, in this interconnected world here we live in now. Okay, so play is super great, important part of this. And I love what you said about your, how you were inspired by your experience with dance and your love of dance. I have a theater background, and just knowing that, like, it's so, how, when we have exposure and experience and engagement with any sort of creative form, right, how that actually does it, we can integrate that into our everyday life, even if we're not an artist, right? Like, people get very worried about, I'm not an artist, so I don't want to be, categorized that way. But we all are creative inherently, right? Inherent creative beings. And so I love how you integrate that sort of connection to dance into your play. And let's talk a little bit more about, let's see, I kind of want to dig into a little bit more about the social impact piece, and also how it connects to play. Is that a fair segue for you?
Yeah, that works. And I think, yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So where do you see play coming into play in terms of your social impact work?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes into, like, leadership too. I really resonated with you saying, like, but I'm not an artist, and I am not an artist, and I don't consider myself, I never did theater. I've never taken an official dance class. Like, but I've realized, especially as a type A, that I need to give myself permission to explore my creative side, and however that looks. If that's creative problem solving, if that's drawing or journaling, if that's dancing, because it literally changes your brain. And so I think even in leadership and in social impact, that we need to put our brains in a space that is open to new possibilities and different perspectives and trust. So, segueing to social impact, I was doing this, I think, without it being the buzzwords, and without, when we talk now, of course, diversity, equity, inclusion is so big, and it's great. It's being infused. And, I would work with students from all over the country and all over the world every week, and they'd be living together. So with social impact, we're going to have them decide what they want the future of America to look like for them, and what their generation wants. But when you have rural kids from Nebraska living with kids from urban LA, and, students that live out in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, we had to start with play. Like, we had to build trust, and we had to connect as humans. And I like to think of it as connecting with our 5-year-old selves, because kids, you have kids, they play with anybody. They're just like, hey, you want to play? That's fine. And so when it comes to social impact, I think that in order to collaborate, in order to create big change, you need to build trust first. And play is a great way to do that. And, I guess it depends on what your definition of play is, but it's just anything kind of outside the box, outside of your norm, that doesn't have a right answer. And that's a big piece. When you play make believe, there's no right answer. It's just what comes up in the moment and creating together. So I think with social impact, it's really about the foundation of interacting with people and building community and building trust and doing that first. And then that foundation allows for so many bigger possibilities to happen and collaborations to be made.
Yeah, and what I think what you're really talking about there too is connection, right? Like when you
Mhm.
have that, when you have the freedom and the lack of stress or pressure to perform, right, or to produce, and you are just allowed to connect in a free and easy way, in a fun way, it really allows that building of trust is essential to a healthy work culture, a healthy work attitude, right? And like we're going to be more creative, we're going to be more productive if we feel more at ease and more connected. Yeah. And Tina, I just want to bring this up because she says that she loves dance and that is her calm. So it sounds like she relates to you not being able to sit still. And right, there's a adage that gets thrown around a lot, which is move a muscle, change a thought, right? So anytime if we're feeling stuck about, if we're a type A personality, getting overwhelmed with stress and anxiety, perfectionism, right? Just get up and move around, do some jumping jacks, do a messy pirouette, see if you can just get yourself out of your body or out of your head by getting into your body. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, love that. So how does you see this play out in workspace culture? Like, you've been doing a lot of focus on this huddle program that you have, which I've participated in a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you're seeing that unfold?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when COVID started, I had actually in January of 2020 had a pretty strong intuition on my own and said, I don't want to work remotely anymore. I've been working remotely for about 10 years, 8.5 years in a previous position. I was in sales and outreach, but doing that all from home and then working as a solopreneur. And it's tough. It's isolating. It requires a lot of self-motivation and bad habits can form. And it's not easy for most people. Even the most motivated, type A, I was hitting all my goals at work and kind of just got forgotten about. So that was me in January of 2020. And then COVID hit. And I just felt like, wow, all these people are going to go work remotely all of a sudden. They're not prepared for it. They've never done it. They didn't ask for it. It wasn't a choice. And my immediate thought was, oh my gosh, they're going to feel so lonely and isolated the way I did. And I didn't want that to happen. So I started these huddles for individuals. I love connecting people. So I brought 10 strangers that I knew, 10 people I knew but didn't know each other into a Zoom room. And I thought, how can I make them friends as quickly as possible? And I created an hour-long experience of just connection and play and fun that had, a lot of my neuroscience background in it and coaching and civic piece. And I really just did it for fun, but it turned into something where they were like, this is so amazing. Like, can we do this again? And turned into, well, why don't we invite someone to come next week? And so they did. And so 10 new strangers showed up the next week and we did the same thing. And I just realized this was such a need. And then people said, well, if you can do this with 10 strangers, imagine what you can do for my organization, because we are so disconnected right now. And we need fun, but we also need some of these real conversations that you're facilitating. So that's really how it started. And that's so, just organically, something kind of came out of me that I saw a need and I wanted to provide. And then, so I've been doing those for organizations and now have created a curriculum, which is amazing. So now organizations can do these and I help teach them how to be facilitators of this. And we have huddles on overcoming burnout, integrating new hires, Zoom fatigue, connecting across differences, all these topics so that we can infuse fun and content and connection into organizations. I call it a super vitamin for their remote culture, So.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I went to the huddle that I participated in, it was like an immediate connection. And part of the connection, I think, was, in that particular group that I was in, was that we all had a connection to you, in different levels. And so, and because you're who you are, you're wonderful and amazing, and we all adore you, that we were able to have that mutual understanding. So I can imagine that in a workplace culture environment too, there's already a certain sense of buy-in, that is to say, we're all in part of this community in some sense or another, right? So I'm curious about, and we didn't really talk about this ahead of time, so if you don't feel comfortable talking about it too much, that's okay. But I'm curious about the neuroscience piece of it. Do you feel comfortable jumping into that a little bit?
Yeah, we can tap into that a little bit.
Because I just love that you get into this. I totally geek out about it. So let's talk a little bit more about what you understand in terms of the neuroscience behind play and connection, and why you dive into that so much.
Yeah. Well, and this is, I kind of joke that, like, my right brain wears left brain glasses. So it's like the creativity, my right brain has to push it through this process and ground it. And that's where the neuroscience comes in. Like, this thing that I know works for me intuitively is then grounded in science. So that's pretty neat. But I mean, it's relatively simple. And I learned through applying this to myself and with lots of clients that I work with. I work with a lot of leaders now who are basically like, I need to lighten up. That's what I need help with. I'm really successful and I don't know exactly how to lighten up. So I get it. Highly successful, always doing the right thing, lots of kudos, but you're not actually happy, and it's it's so uncomfortable now, right? So when it comes to neuroscience of play, it's really just that our brains have different parts to them, and part of our brain is there to protect us, and it's our fear center, and it's what triggers the fight or flight response, right? It triggers our stress response, and it is the oldest part of our brain. It's like the reptilian brain. We needed it when we were out hunting in the woods. Obviously, we needed to have insulin and energy to run from a bear. Right. And so our body still reacts that way biologically. If we are stressed out, something scares us, our body reacts biologically to that. And that's why a lot of people have health problems and digestive problems and things like that, because we're still operating that way. And then if you look at, there's different parts of the brain, but the prefrontal cortex, which kind of sits here in the front, is more of the evolved brain that can do creative problem solving, big reasoning, and it has that connection and belonging and purpose in it. And let's be honest, we live in a world that is very fear-center triggering. We have information overload. We have, really lots of racial equity issues coming up, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's very real. We've lived in a year of complete uncertainty. I've had people say, I'm okay with change, but I'm not okay with uncertainty. That creates fear. So right now, it's like having your right bicep muscle be really, really strong, and your left one's super weak. And the left one would be your prefrontal cortex. So play is the thing. It's the workout that actually works the prefrontal cortex so that you can be more trusting. You can be more creative. You can connect to purpose and shared purpose. And that's important as human beings. If we don't feel connected to the greater humanity, it's part of our lifeblood. Like, we need to walk around this world knowing that we are connected to other human beings on just a biological level that makes us want to continue to live and continue to be in this society. And this last year, social isolation, right? We have been doing a lot less of that. So long answer, but essentially with the neuroscience, it's really about giving people opportunities to strengthen mostly their prefrontal cortex to balance out the fear center so that you can be stressed out, but you've got this other muscle that's just as strong that says, okay, we've gone through this before and we've got a creative solution to this. Or I trust that we're going to be okay because we've been through this before and we came out alive. So keep moving forward, or looking at someone and being able to feel trust instead of, that immediate response of threat that unfortunately some people walk through the world with. I don't know why. I see potential friends everywhere I go. Somehow I built that part of my prefrontal cortex. So that's it in a nutshell, is just really helping balance the brain.
Yeah. I think that is such an important point to remember. A lot of the people all the people that I work with, we always talk about that one, because I have an assessment that I work with, and we talk about the stress reaction that we all have, right? We all have different versions of it. And to remember that, first of all, it's human to have that response. And second of all, that it's not healthy to stay there, right? So we have to build new habits and new behaviors. And part of I love the creativity piece of this is if we can envision if it hasn't happened yet, we have an experience where we feel like we can get through something, or it isn't mapping to our current circumstances, we can get creative. We can journal, we can write, we can dance, we can play through how we might come up with a new solution. And that creating the new neural pathways for us that essentially makes a neurological memory, right? Yep. To give us that trust within ourselves that we can figure it out, even if we haven't done it in real life yet, so to speak, but we have done it here. And right. So we have that trust within ourselves to be able to walk through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, you are a master coach, and, you know, I work with people, and with my clients, I often say, when we're going to try a new habit and try to get those neural pathways going, I always say to them, tell yourself this is just an experiment. Mm-hmm. There are going to be days that you don't want to do this. There are days that your brain's going to say, nope, this is silly. This doesn't give me a direct outcome. Or we did it for 3 days, let's give up today. And I said, just tell yourself it's an experiment, and you're going to do it for 7 days, and we can stop after 7 days if we don't like it, but do it anyway. And, that's it. Yeah. Just talking to yourself of just an experiment.
We can do anything for 7 days, right? I'm writing that down. So I would love to open up the floor if anybody has any questions for Sara about the work that she does, or me, or both of us. If any comments about thoughts or insights, reflections you have about what we're talking about today, go ahead and put those in the comments. I would love to see one or two of you pipe up today with your voice. And Sara, I would love to know a little bit more about, would you mind sharing just a little bit of your curriculum, like how you might start? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to give us like a little peek into the world of what you're doing in these huddles and how they help people? Absolutely.
So, I mean, really what I'm thinking about here that keeps coming up is that another passion of mine, or what started this, was engagement. I come from an experiential education background, and there are so many webinars, and, even now you're engaging people live on this. And I know that you learn more and you retain more when you discuss and you engage and you teach others. So as a little peek into the huddle, I say that the main pillars are that it's brain-based, it is experiential. So we're going to engage, we're going to have cameras on, we're going to do stuff together, and we're going to discuss it. And it's actually measurable too. I've teamed up with 2 Days Mood. So we're measuring the impact of how people feel before and after, and the changes that are there. But introducing into it, if a company is going to use this in their company, I would have trained some of their facilitators. So maybe someone in their finance department has trained as a huddle facilitator, and they're going to bring in the overcoming burnout huddle. So they have their PowerPoint slides, and I show them how to all the Zoom bells and whistles to make it super engaging. And it really just goes through a bit of a curve. I like to say, where at the beginning, you got to build trust. So we start in with questions that are very open-ended and just give people a chance to say, like, what would make your day today? Like, let's just start with that. And then goes into some content. So it's giving people content, but through discussion. So it may have, they're all different, but there might be a music piece that's incorporated to say, okay, listen to this, and then let's discuss how that made you feel. Or we often start with an agree or disagree on a quote that has to do with the topic. And then every huddle has a engaging creative solution where people are put into groups and they have to create something together on the topic. And then at the end, there is always an action step. So what now? I mean, I have a teaching background, so you can't do a lesson without well, what now? We did all this stuff. What are we going to do now? So at the end of it, people are so connected to each other and to the content, and they're laughing and they've had fun, even though they're talking about stress or they're talking about differences. But at the end, it's like, well, what now? And then putting people in small groups to do action steps and hold each other accountable and say, well, based on what I learned today, I'm going to try that one experiment on overcoming burnout this week. And I commit to this group and I say, I am going to do that this week. So like every day I'm going to do my acknowledgement list, and the other people in the group will too. And then they leave as a little pack to say, okay, 1 week from now, we got to check in and make sure that we did our experiment. So they each have that curve to them where it's building trust at the beginning, engaging in discussion, and then giving them a chance to create and play with the content and really experience it, and then take action based on the new content that they've had.
Yeah, that's such a fun way to build accountability too, right? It's like we're
Mhm.
coming at where there's a team huddle. We're going to become a
Mhm.
team, or we already are a team. We're going to become a closer team, and we're going to hold each other accountable for our own success and for that success of the team, right?
Mhm.
Through action and through and connection.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, and, as you know too, as a coach, you really have to go through the process of helping people to step back. Right? Step back from the day-to-day and the nitty-gritty of like, "Oh, there's gonna be another finance meeting, and it's gonna look like this, and we're gonna have spreadsheets." It's like having people step back from life and then, be able to say yes to self. I mean, it's from coaching, like getting people into a space where they're like, I feel empowered, I feel inspired, I wanna do something different today." That
Mhm.
doesn't just happen.
Right.
There's an environment that needs to be created for people to step into that, and especially when you're working from home. Like you're by yourself ruminating with yourself all the time. So this provides that connection and that inspiration so that people are ready to change. And so many people, I think organizations now, there's been so much change in the last year, and giving people a safe space and an inspiring space to embrace change as opposed to just being told,
Yeah.
guess what, change is coming down the pike, get ready.
Yeah, that engagement and connection is so critical for so many reasons. I mean, I have a client that I've been talking to, and he's talking about how his staff is, they're all kind of in transition and they're not really sure what they're going to do next. And he's like, when we get on a meeting and it's really great, and then I don't really hear from them for the rest of the day, and I don't know, they're going back and sitting and watching TV in their underwear. Like, is that what's happening?
Mm.
It's hard to tell,
Yeah.
and not to not say anything negative about their employees. It's just like because we don't feel connected. We don't feel engaged in what we're doing beyond the immediate Zoom, which of course takes a lot of energy to on Zoom and like show up in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is the point of the program where I offer the opportunity for our guests to give us a golden nugget of wisdom or something they'd like to share. If there's one takeaway that you'd like to give to us
Mhm.
today, what would that be?
Yeah. Ooh, a golden nugget. Really, right now, the golden nugget is: are you stretching your brain?
Mm,
And I have really felt for like over a year, I've always committed to my physical health. I love to move my body. I like to work out. I like to do that. And great. The thing I wasn't doing during all that was like learning to stretch my brain and get into creativity and doing things differently. And that's a lot of the work I do. So thinking about just that, how can I stretch my brain today?
mm.
And that means doing things differently. And I'm actually working on some other exciting things that people can use at home, which will be coming out soon, of some activities for this where they can just do daily stretches. But yeah, stretch your brain. Take a different way home from work. If those of you that are driving to work,
Mhm.
eat something different, pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone that you haven't had in a long time. Just stretch every day, your brain.
I think this is important for kids too, right? Kids who have been in remote school for them. My kids have been in remote school now for
Mhm.
the whole like 13 months.
Mhm.
And my oldest, so I'm gonna tell a secret here live, but my oldest has been really well, all three of them, but especially my oldest has been having such a hard time, like just coming back to
Yeah.
his 16-year-old self. Like he's got
Mhm.
friends who are going out. He doesn't really feel compelled to go out. He's
Mhm.
not sure if he wants to be on the running team anymore. And it's hard because the whole year of his life has been
Yeah.
totally different than what he expected, and it's been completely changed. So yeah, stretching. Oh, that's what we've been talking to him about. Is like it's going to be hard to re-enter, and you have to do it. you have to
Yeah.
put yourself to do it.
Yeah, and those stretches can be little, for him. Maybe it's like a rubber band, right? Like stretch it a little bit
Yeah.
today. And then maybe the next day it gets to stretch a little bit more. And then the next day it stretches a little bit more. So, you don't have to go out and like throw a dance party. And that like, oh, now I can pat myself on the back. It's like maybe for some people, stretching is just thinking about reaching out to your friends to
Yeah.
hang out. And then the next day you actually send the text. And then it's acknowledge yourself for every little stretch along the way.
Small attainable goals too, where it helps us build success and trust in ourselves.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today. It's just lovely to see you and for
Yeah, same
sharing all
here.
of your wisdom and your programs. And so, how can people connect with you if they want to bring a huddle into their work environment or their
Yeah.
team?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website's the best place to start, and that's saraemhof.com. And I do actually have a free download on there of 5 ways to make your virtual meetings more engaging. If any of you are leading those and need some extra tips. And there's information, yeah, about our huddle series where either I come in and facilitate a huddle, or better yet, just bring it to your company, the whole curriculum, and make it part of your culture.
Fantastic. I just put your website in the chat there for people to see on YouTube and Facebook, and they can get a hold of you. And I highly recommend Sarah's. As you can see, she's a wonderful spirit, and she's got a wealth of knowledge, and the huddles are super fun and engaging. And they just are really, they're also very calming. They're like, if you feel inspired, you feel grounded, you feel calm, you feel happy when you're done with them. So go check that out, and encourage you to invite her into your work culture to see how you can have some fun and connect and play.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Sarah. If you'll hang on just a minute, at the end we can wrap up together. I'm just going to take you off of the feed for a second because I just wanted to mention something, but I'll be right there. Thanks. And I just wanted to take a moment here, everybody, to say thank you for all of you who have reached out to me this week. You saw on my page, my Merritt Minimier page, that I did. I had an important anniversary this week of my first husband, Peter, passing away on the 15th, 9 years ago. And I posted a little story about that and the message that he left for me the night he died. And I just really appreciate all of you engaging there and reaching out, sending your love, and saying that you were inspired by his words. It means the world to me that that this legacy of his lives on in me, in my kids, and in my family, and in you. So thank you so much for that. Have a great week, everybody. If you want to reach out to me, please do anytime through DM. We can set up a discovery call, and I'd love to talk to you. Stay well and have some fun. Stretch your brain this week and play. See you soon.